back with us on the conversation. So he left Somalia at 15, landed in Canada at 16, the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. And I wonder if Ahmed Hussen saw all of this in his future when he first landed in Canada, not used to the environment, not used to that way of life, obviously, given that he was far removed from what Canada had to offer. I wonder what you saw in your future when, as a teenager, you took your first tentative steps there. Tell me about the reason for leaving Somalia and the difficulty that you and your parents faced having to make the decision to leave the land you had called home since birth.
Absolutely. It was a very, very difficult decision. Of course, I was too young to be part of the decision. I was just told what to do.
Yep.
But we left, we packed up, and so did many of our neighbors. It just became untenable in terms of the violence and the chaos, and we had to leave. And we packed our meager belongings on the back of a big truck, and we moved south. Across, south to the southern end of Somalia, and then we made our way into Kenya. And it was the first experience in being a refugee. Kenya, of course, didn't have the infrastructure or the tradition of welcoming such a large number of refugees across their border. And you know, Kenya already is struggling with its own challenges. So we had some difficulties there, and it was very difficult to keep that going. One of the most powerful things that I remember is my parents making the decision to say, look, we're almost at the end of our rope here, but at least we should do whatever we can to get you to go to Canada. And the reason they picked Canada as opposed to Sweden or anywhere else is because my two brothers lived in Toronto.
Yes.
And so they felt that at least I would get some sort of support and familiarity through them. But yes, they helped a little bit, but it was not any less easier.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. I arrived in the middle of one of the worst winters in recorded history. They call it the storm of the century.
Yeah.
And I had to adjust to all of that. It was very difficult.
So when you landed, what was your status upon setting foot in Canada for the first time?
I was a refugee,
Yeah.
but I didn't have any. I mean, my older brother, one of them worked in a factory. The other one was a truck driver at night, and he slept in the day. So I was essentially on my own for the most part. And the difficulty with that is you have to figure out how to do everything in this new land.
Yeah.
For example, I struggled the very next day. I wanted to send a letter to my mother, and I didn't know how to mail the damn thing.
Yeah.
So I was told, you know, go to a mailbox and just put it in. I go to this mailbox and I couldn't figure out, do I push, do I pull, what do I do? And as I was wrestling with this metallic box in the middle of a huge snowstorm, there was a Canadian woman who was pushing her child in a stroller. She left the child for a few seconds, came, snatched the envelope from my hand and put it in and pushed it in and said, that's how you do it. And so from the very second day, I had a good experience with Canadian generosity.
You know, I'm happy you're speaking on this topic, because unlike what you see in the movies with refugees, so a boy like yourself turns up in Canada at 16.
Yes.
And the movies say it's about living in the shadows, about bureaucracy when you try to deal with the authorities to regularize your status, difficulties in school, being bullied, all those. Was that your experience?
I had a bit of that, in the sense that, first of all, I had to figure everything else out. I had to deal with, you know, not having much to live on, because you just get a little bit of government assistance, which isn't much.
Yes.
It barely covers your basic needs. So you really struggle with that. And I had to go back to school and get my high school diploma, which was frustrating because, by the way, this is very pertinent to what I'm doing now.
Yes.
I went through, I suffered immigration backlogs, which at the time, people who had arrived around the same time as me were going through.
Yes.
So my life was in limbo for a little bit. And it made things harder in terms of trying to to go to school or working.
Yes.
And I remember one of the things that I did to just feel that I belonged somewhere was join the track and field team and the cross country team in my high school.
Oh, you weren't a sprinter, eh?
No, I was a middle distance. I wasn't that fast.
There you go.
But I had a long stride, and
yes.
I did well. And I got a number of scholarships, full ride to
yes.
the United States, but I couldn't go because
yes.
my immigration status was still in limbo.
Yes.
And so I know what you mean by regularization
yeah.
and the difficulties of being in immigration limbo. And that experience has really helped me understand the personal cost of these immigration backlogs.
Absolutely.
And when I, many years later, became a minister,
yes.
I threw myself into that particular aspect of my job,
yeah,
which is to eliminate backlogs and reduce processing times. And we've done that.
Yeah, I noticed you said that when you were living the experience,
yeah.
that the assistance from the government to get by wasn't enough.
It was
Is it still not enough? Have you managed to?
I think, yeah, well that for resettled refugees, we do provide them with a good amount of support for the first year.
Yes.
But after that, they revert back to the social welfare program, which is not much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamaicans have been in Canada for, the history suggests, Minister, since 1796.
Yeah,
when they came over.
Yes.
Of course, it didn't stay long, that group, but that's another story. But
yes.
from that time, the first Jamaicans on record set foot in Canada in 1796 in Halifax.
Yes.
Since that time, Jamaicans have steadily come. And among the broad West Indian group, Jamaicans account for the most of the West Indians in Canada from this area. Yeah. Your census of 2016 said what? About 309,000, 310,000 Jamaican and Canadians.
But we think it's more
than that. Yeah. So I ask, with this constituency of Jamaicans so large in Canada, is there, what guides the facilitation that your government's policy sets for Jamaicans looking to work in Canada, not necessarily the highly skilled jobs, because we know that there are only so many of those, and it's highly competitive from people around the world looking to come in.
Yes.
But is there special facilitation for Jamaicans looking to resettle in Canada, given the long history that Jamaica and Canada has had?
First of all, I use the experiences of Jamaican Canadians as one of the examples to fight fear with facts. Yes. Those who fear-monger about immigration, I say, look at the Jamaican Canadian community, look at the Vietnamese community, look at all these groups that came to Canada and are now thriving and are giving back to their home countries, but also making Canada more prosperous, stronger, helping us develop markets. You know, the number of people of Jamaican heritage who are Canadian, who are investing in Jamaica and helping our businesses in Canada export to Jamaica. And two-way trade. I mean, those benefits are incalculable. In terms of the facilitation, this is a really important point, and I want to take the time to answer it. First of all, we are the government. Philosophically, we are way more ambitious on immigration than the previous government.
Yes.
So we have steadily increased immigration levels every single year we've been in office. We have sent a message to the world that Canada needs more international students, that Canada welcomes more workers because we need them, and that Canada needs more skilled labor. Now, in terms of Jamaica, we have to be careful about, I know that there's sensitivities around brain drain.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that any facilitation we do with respect to Jamaica is done in conjunction with the Jamaican government.
Yes.
And is done in a way that will be a win-win-win. A win for the individual, a win for Canada, and obviously a win for Jamaica. And I think there is room for collaboration on a number of fronts. So I'll give you an example.
Yes.
We have the Seasonal Agricultural Worker Program. Yes. More than 50 years old.
Yes.
Great success, right? Why can't we replicate that program with non-seasonal agricultural workers? With people in the meat cutting industry, with people in the butchering industry and others, where we have an obvious need. In certain parts of Canada, in Eastern Canada, for example, there's 4 provinces in Atlantic Canada. There's an obvious need for not only labor, but for people to retain that talent and that skill. And that economy needs everyone from the low-skilled labor, intermediate, and high-skilled. It doesn't matter. They need everyone. Same thing with rural Canada. So rural Canada contributes almost 30% into our GDP.
Yes.
Yet most of the newcomers go to the big cities. So in January, I announced the first ever Canada's Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program. So that is a program, we're still working on the details.
Yes.
But we're going ahead. I'll be announcing the communities that will participate in that. That is a program that is open to Jamaicans.
Yes.
So if those communities and those employers come and recruit Jamaican workers, we will do the processing.
Yeah.
And I actually think Jamaican workers have an advantage here because of the language.
Yes.
And the similar style of government and values, right? So I believe that, and it's part of why I'm visiting here, to educate the business community who I have met and I'll meet again tonight, the government and all that, to update them on saying, wait a second, you know, we have more than the seasonal agricultural worker program. We have the global skills strategy, which allows a researcher in Jamaica to come to Canada and conduct research and teach on the side for 120 days out of the year with no work permit required. You know, in the past we asked them to do a work permit,
Yes.
which took a long time.
Yes.
So we're more facilitative than ever before.
As we go to the break, Minister, let me ask you this blunt question. It is, all right, let me ask it like a lawyer would.
Yeah, sure.
I'm suggesting to you
Yeah.
that the Jamaican Caribbean immigrant has been very good to Canada
Yes,
and for Canada.
that's correct.
There you go, the man says yes. We are coming back for our penultimate segment on the conversation with the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship in Canada, Ahmed Hussen.